Good morning. Good morning. Well, it's afternoon now, right? Because it's it's lunch. It's noon. Oh gosh, my hair, guys. I might have to do a poll and ask: is it time to cut it, or is it like should I hang in there and try to keep growing it? It's like such an in between place that I don't know if I can take the growing out phase. It's in that in between phase, and I just whoops, and I just don't know if I can take it much more. So I look at these older videos of myself and I see my hair cut off, and I'm like, oh, my hair looked pretty good in that video. And I'm like, oh, but I've been working on it for over a year trying to get it grown out just to see if I can just get it in a ponytail and just grow it out one more time. But I don't know. Every day I look in the mirror and I'm like, should I cut it or should I keep letting it grow? So I don't know. What do you guys think? Put it in the comments, or put it in the live chat, or put it in the comments below if you're watching the review. Anyway, so I'm here. I know last week I said that I might not be coming back every week, and then I got a lot of feedback, and a lot of people are like, "Oh no, we're gonna miss you," and I look forward to your weekly chats, and I guess you just don't realize the impact that you have on other people across the screen. And I was like, "Oh, okay, it's like an hour out of my week every week. If I cannot make time for the widowed community that I have been a part of for these last 4 years, then that's just doing you guys a disservice." So, especially since I'm not working. So, one of the reasons why I stopped working is so I could commit more time to my widowed community. And, of course, I have to make money other ways in business. But anyway, I'm here. So, and if you're here, I'm so happy. Feel free to put it in the chat and say hello. If not, then just thank you for coming. Or you might be watching what do you call that? The recorded, the recorded version. So today I want to talk about finances. I haven't talked about finances in a while, and finance is just something that's a part of everybody's life. And so, when we become widowed, it becomes a big part of our lives, and it can affect us in a big way. Like that's one of the major changes that takes place when we become widowed. Um, Sometimes, in a detrimental way. And so, since it's tax time, I figured that was the topic that needed to be talked about this week, because my current husband and I have an appointment tomorrow afternoon um, to see the accountant so that we can get our taxes done. And we're keeping our fingers crossed that some of the larger purchases that we made this year that were essential for our business, aka he had to buy a new milk truck to deliver milk in. Hopefully that might be enough to reduce or possibly eliminate paying any more taxes than we've already paid in. But we'll see. I guess we'll find out tomorrow. But anyway, I wanted to go over a little bit of an overview of like how my finances have changed from the time that Dewey got sick until the time that today, essentially, because it's still affecting me even to this day. And then I want to give just a few. I have some notes. I'm going to look over to the side and check my notes. But just a few things to think about if you are either in fresh grief, or if you are still trying to figure out how to live life as a widow. Even if it might be years after, because there's still transitions that have to be made even years later. So first, just know that it's a normal thing, even though it sucks really bad. But that's one of the main things that does happen to us when we become widowed is that our finances change immensely. And sometimes, depending on the financial situation that we're in before our spouses or have passed away, how old we are, how much we've planned ahead of time, those types of things. And so it really kind of depends on that as to what kind of situation that we're in when it's just us, right? And so life insurance can play a big factor into that. Social Security benefits can play a big factor into that. I'm going to touch on all of those things as we go through the list. And just know that there's short-term changes that we have to deal with, and then there's also going to be long-term changes that we have to deal with, and that we have to certain things we have to put in place, certain legal things, legal factors come into play. Obviously, long-term factors come into play, changes that we have to make, unfortunately, with things like wills and um, beneficiaries and just all that fun stuff when it comes to money, right? And if you're not really sure what to do or where to go next, or what to do, because remember, I am not a professional. First of all, I'm not a professional counselor or a doctor. I can just share my experiences with you. And second of all, I'm surely not an accountant or a lawyer. And so I cannot give you any financial advice. I cannot give you any legal advice. I can tell you that there are options. I can explain some of the options that I know about, but there's probably lots of options that I don't know about. And also, it depends on what country you live in and ultimately what state you live in, sometimes even what county or city that you might live in when it comes to taxes and things like that. So, obviously, I'm not going to give you tax advice or financial advice, but I will tell you how things have affected me. And I will tell you, at least, that to make you aware that there are options out there and maybe point you in the right direction to where you can find some answers if you have questions. The first place I wanted to point you in the direction of is Money Pickle. They are a professional financial services, and they have people that specialize in widowed finances and long-term planning, short-term planning, all that kind of stuff, taxes, wills, probate, just anything that has to do with money. They are full of people who are professionals in that regard. So there is a link below. It's moneypickle.com/onehappywidow. If you want to go there, I do have a link there. And all you have to do is go there and sign up. You answer like 5 simple questions, and then you go on the calendar and you put in your appointment for your 45-minute free consultation. It's online. It's like Zoom or something similar. I've done it with them, and you know, it was very helpful because I basically just laid out the situation that we were in. I kind of did it a little late because I consulted them right after we had made a big financial decision. But when I told him what we had done, he was like, you know what? If you were asking me before doing this, I would have told you to do exactly what you just did. And so it at least gave me peace of mind knowing that we took out a mortgage on our house, and in order to restructure it and pay off some debts. And so we weren't sure if that was the best course of action, but we had already done it. And when I told the guy, he was like, you know what, that's probably the best thing you could have done. So at least I felt better about that. And so it's, like I said, it's totally free. Of course, they have services that if you want to continue on, you can pay for services and different things. And, I don't know what they are because I never signed up for them. I did not feel pressured on that call to sign up for anything. It was not like a heavy sales pitch or anything like that. He was just like, look, this is what I want you to do. I want you to make a budget. I want you to live with this budget that you've created for yourself for the next several months. And if you get to a point where you feel like you might need to make some changes, come back and talk to me and we can discuss what services that we have. That was all he said about, like, he was just letting me know that there were services available. So I did not feel like he was a used car salesman, like trying to push all this stuff just because I came in there. So I want you to feel at ease with that. And I do feel like that it was useful information for me. All right. So first, you want to talk about, I'll go over a brief overview. I know I say brief, it's probably going to be less than brief, but you know me, of basically just how our money situation looked from the time that we were going along, not realizing anything was about to happen to us until basically today. So Dewey was in the military and I was a school teacher. So both of us had stable income, relatively, as far as teaching goes, stable income, but not and good benefits. Military gives really good health benefits. Then with teaching, I had decent retirement benefits and things like that. We had a steady check, so we knew how much money we were going to make from month to month. Unfortunately, that money was just not very much, and so we lived in Georgia, which is low cost of living area, so that helped. But being being an enlisted member of the military and the Army, you didn't make a whole lot. And me being a teacher, also not making a whole lot. So it was pretty difficult for us to make ends meet. Even as a 2-income family in America, we had 4 children. We wanted to make sure that we always lived in a nice neighborhood that was close to nice schools. And so we were very selective about the places that we chose to live because we wanted to make sure that we lived in a safe area and that our children went to the best school that we could provide for them that was available to us. In addition, we were moving around a lot. And so it was hard for me to move up in my job because every time I got a teaching job and taught for a year or two, I would either get pregnant and stay home and stay home with the kids for a year or two, or he would get stationed somewhere and we would move. And so my first 9 years of teaching, I taught at 9 different schools. So that was just a little side note. It's very hard to have a career as a military spouse. Anyway, but we were doing okay, but just kind of like treading water, right? We did have some things in place for retirement, things like that. Of course, we're paying our taxes, we're paying into Social Security, so we had that going for us. But from day to day, we were pretty paycheck to paycheck, right? Well, and then Dewey got back when he got back from Iraq, and he started having a lot of issues. And when he came back from Iraq, he was just not the same person. So even when he came back in 2003, he already had a bunch of issues. So between 2003 to 2008, that was when he got discharged from the military on a medical. And so during those 5 years, all those things that he brought back from war, continued to manifest. So he had PTSD, he had back problems, he had degenerative disc disease, he had broken his tailbone in an injury over there. He came back with a lot of internal issues from being exposed to toxins and to burn pits when he was over there. And his job was also chemical in nature. And so he was around a lot of toxins that way. And with the way that they feed the soldiers over there, he came back with a lot of internal issues. He had diabetes when he came back. He had fatty liver when he came back, even though he did not drink. He actually gained weight while he was over there, believe it or not. He came back bigger than he was when he had left. And he had sleep apnea. He had night terrors. He had some ankle injuries. He had broken an ankle when he was in training, and that was bothering him. He had plantar fasciitis. Like he had ear problems. He had like the laundry list of stuff. And so finally they were getting ready to send him back overseas again. And, they were doing all these tests and finding out how healthy you are, because before they send you over to overseas to get shot at and put your life on the line, they want to make sure you're as healthy as possible before they do that. And so while they were going through these batteries of tests, they realized they're like, you're just not fit to serve. They were like, basically, you either need to get a desk job and sit behind a desk, or we're going to put you out, and we're going to discharge you on a medical. And I was telling him like, medical, because if he's going to work a desk job, he could work a desk job in the civilian realm, and we could find a place to live and stay there forever and not be under the thumb of the military, being moved around all over the place every 2 or 3 years, just so he could work some desk job that he could have, been an insurance salesman or something in the civilian world. So he chose to go ahead with the military discharge process. So he got out of the military, and they gave him a severance package that was nice. It was like $60,000, just one big check. Here's your separation pay. And then, because they figure you're going to be applying for some sort of disability or something like that, but they know that it's going to be a while before you get that process done. And so they give you money to tide you over while you're going through all those other processes. So of course, $60,000 is like over a year of salary for him. So we were like, yeah, we had all this money. And so, he bought a motorcycle and a new car, and we bought another house because we moved. And instead of selling a house and buying another house, remember, this was 2008. So think about what's going on in the world at that time. Predatory lending was high. Anybody could buy a house or a second house or a third or whatever. And so we rented out our old house and bought another one. So we had 2 houses, AKA 2 mortgages. And so we're going along. And then, first of all, we filed our taxes that second year. Oh, and all of his student loans got discharged, or not discharged, but like forgiven, right? Well, we thought that was great. It was like $60,000 in student loans. We thought, okay, wonderful. Come to find out that when you get your student loans forgiven or discharged or whatever, at least back then. They count that as income. And so that year when we did our taxes, we had an additional $60,000 of income from the discharged student loans. It's not like we had money in our hand from that. We just didn't have to pay them back. Well, that took us from our normal big chunk of income. We usually got a big tax refund, $8,000 tax refund every year, because of the way we filed and we had so many kids and, all that stuff. We went from usually getting $6,000 or $8,000 back to owing like $12,000 in taxes that next year. And we were like, what? Well, needless to say, we didn't have that money. So we had to go on some kind of payment plan. Well, and also it was like the perfect storm. Everybody remembers 2007, 2008 being a perfect storm of finances in the United States, right? That was what we call the bubble burst. So between the huge tax thing that we had, and then the person who was renting our house that we didn't live in anymore decided to move. So we didn't have a renter. And we were just struggling to pay bills because we had a $700 motorcycle payment and another whatever $1,000. I mean, no, I had a new car. He had a new car. We had a new motorcycle. I mean, bills were piling up, right? And so we got behind on our mortgage like everybody was doing. And we talked to these people that were going to try to do some kind of a restructure of our mortgage, and we were already 2 months behind. And so we were doing this application, and they were like, "Don't worry about it. We're going to have this application. We're going to restructure your mortgage, and then in the process, you'll have like 2 months where you don't have to pay mortgage, and then it'll be lower and lower interest rate, all this stuff." We were like, "Okay," but our third mortgage payment is coming up that we haven't paid. They're like, "Don't even worry about paying that one, because by the time that one comes up, you'll be in this new loan. Don't even worry about it." So we didn't pay that third mortgage in a row, and we got a notice of default. And so we called the people, we're like, "Hey, they're trying to take our house, I mean, what's going on?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, well, unfortunately, you did not qualify for this new program or whatever." Okay, well, so we didn't have a new mortgage. We're now 3 months behind on our mortgage. When you get 3 months behind and they start foreclosure processes, you have to pay everything that you are behind. You can't just pay an extra payment or pay the payment you're late on and then go back another. Like, you have to pay all 3 months that we were behind plus the one that was coming up. So essentially we needed to pay 4 mortgage payments at once in order to keep them from taking our house. In the meantime, our house that we had left behind that was being rented that they moved out of, we couldn't make that payment either. So they were in the process of foreclosing that house too. So in all that amount of time, we lost our house, we lost another house, we lost a car, and we lost a motorcycle. Needless to say, our credit was shot and our finances were awful. And he did not have a job and couldn't get one because he was disabled, but not on disability. During all that time, we were trying to apply for his disability. So he finally got his disability through the military. So that's a couple $1,000s a month. Okay. Whew, breathe easy, right? I'm still working. And then in that amount of time, because of the whole bubble bursting and the housing market crash and all that, well, the job market also started to crash. And so you think that teaching is a recession-proof job? It is not. So even teachers were being laid off. And we had just moved to this new place. So I was a new teacher at this new school. It was actually the school where he had gone to high school, his old hometown school. Well, it was a really small school. And they were making budget cuts all across the nation, but especially in Georgia. And so they were cutting teaching jobs. So our principal comes in and says, "Hey, by the way, we have to cut 4 teaching positions for next year." And so he said, "I've decided it's just going to be on seniority only, like no merit, no nothing. It's just, last in, first out." So the last 4 teachers that they had hired, the 4 newest teachers, were going to be the ones that would not be returning. And I was the only new teacher that year. So it was me, obviously, and then the 3 teachers that had been hired in previous years. And so I already knew that I wasn't going to be teaching the next year. I was going to be out of a job. And I was working a second job as a weight loss instructor, and that company went under. And so I lost my part-time job. And so I was out of work. Dewey was out of work because he was on disability, and we were trying to make ends meet on his $2,000 disability pay a month. So luckily, once he got his disability, and we kept having to reapply and reapply to try to get more and more and more. He finally got his 100% when we hired an attorney to represent him. So he got his 100% disability, which means at least we had benefits as far as health insurance. We had health insurance. The kids would have some college, things when they were getting ready to go to college, and we had a little bit of money. Basically, that was it. We got on food stamps. I mean, we didn't get public assistance because we didn't qualify for that, but we did qualify for food stamps, and we totally went on them. And then I got pregnant with my youngest, Dallas. And so, needless to say, things were bleak. So anyway, once he got his disability through the military, he decided to apply also for Social Security disability, which he was allowed to do. And he did get pretty quickly, he got approved for that, because if the military says that you're 100% disabled, then why would the government think anything different? And so he got that. So we did what's called double dipping, which is totally allowed. But so he was getting some of his money from the government, the VA, the government, the military, and some of his money from Social Security. So between those two, he was making $4,000 or $5,000 a month, which was enough, but not enough. You know what I mean? We had to make a lot of changes. So anyway, that's a long story, but that was like all of that stuff happened right about the time that he was put out of the military on his medical discharge. And so basically, like, the shit hit the fan all at one time. And we had a new baby, in addition to the other 3 that we had at home. So we were like this close from being homeless, like trying to figure out where do we go. We couldn't get a mortgage for a house, so we couldn't buy another house. So we had to rent. Well, when you rent, they go on your credit score, which sucked because we had two foreclosures, 2 repoed cars. Like our credit was in the toilet. Luckily, so was everybody else's in America. And so if all the rental properties had said no to everybody who had lost their house or was in financial straits, they never would have rented to another person. So luckily, the restrictions were pretty low to get into a rental. So I moved to another town. I got I started working on my fabric business, which I'm still doing now. And I went back to college and I started living on student loans. I mean, I had benefits from the military to pay me to go to college. And so the VA was giving me $1,200 a month to be a college student. So I was like, okay, well, that's my salary. I didn't have to pay that back. So I went to graduate school and just got another degree and used that money to finance our lives. So anyway, all of that happened. And then, so when it came down to it, he was actually making more money than me, and he was on disability. So we continued to try to make ends meet, and it just wasn't doing it. So, and then he got sick. And so in 2017, he got sick. So he had basically been on disability and doing all these things for 8 or 10 years. And, we were still struggling. We had moved, and I had gotten another job, and we were trying to get on our feet. We were trying to save it up to buy a house. We lost another car. It was just like robbing Peter to pay Paul. It was the typical hand to mouth, month to month, finding change in the couch to try to get gas money. Like we just scraped by. We weren't poor, but we just struggled all the time, and we never could seem to get ahead. Then he got sick. And, of course, him getting sick, he was already on disability pay. So his pay didn't really change while he was sick. And, luckily I was also working. And so, things didn't really change a lot until he actually died. So when he died, I got that $225 Social Security thing to help you bury them. How's $225 going to help you with a $12,000 funeral expense. I don't know, but I got that. And then he had life insurance. But to be honest, if y'all have watched my other videos in the past, you'll know that his mom and his best friend tried to dispute the amounts that they had gotten in the life insurance policy. And so, because it was disputed, the life insurance would not pay out. And so, we had two choices. We could go to court and fight over it, or we could settle out of court and settle on an amount that everybody was agreeable with. And they were like, if you go and fight this out in court, it could be 2 to 5 years. And with legal expenses, by the time it's all said and done, you could have no money left. And so, she decided to contest her amount. She was getting some, his friend was getting some, but they contested and wanted more. So I thought, well, if we're going to hold it up in court anyway, and they are going to contest, well, I'm going to contest too. I just want it all, because when he went into hospice, I was getting it all, and he changed a bunch of stuff in those 10 days before he died. And I don't know if he really understood what he was giving them, because he was very confused about, he kept thinking he kept forgetting that if he gave his mom more money, that means that the money that I had was less. Like if you add to one, you subtract from the other, but he had so much medicine in his system. He couldn't really remember that giving more to mom means giving less to wife. Giving more to best friend means giving less for your kids. And so he didn't quite put those things together. I would remind him about it, and he's like, oh, okay. Oh yeah. But he just didn't, he wasn't thinking clearly. So I was thinking, well, I don't think he was in his right mind when he was making all those changes and decisions. And I was helping him do it, but I don't know that he knew exactly what he was doing when he was making those changes. So I contested it too. I was like, if I'm going to have to be held up and go to court and pay all these fees and fight, well, when it's all said and done, I want my part, right? And so I counter contested and said, look, if you're going to contest, then I'm going to also. I don't want you to have anything if you're going to do this crap, because his mother was taking me to court and contesting life insurance that I needed to use to raise her grandchildren. Like, I needed to pay rent. I needed to buy groceries, and I could not do that because I didn't have the money, because she was holding it up in court because she wanted more than the $50,000 that she was already getting. So, I thought, well, how selfish is that? So anyway, so finally, after 4 months, and I lost another car in the process, I had to give up one of my cars because I could not make the car payment. So in those 4 months of us fighting over it, she finally was like, okay, fine, we'll come to an agreement. And, the agreement was that everybody got exactly what it said in the original documents. She got the money she was supposed to get. His friend got the money he was supposed to get, and I got the money I was supposed to get. But yeah, it took an extra 4 months for everybody to get exactly what they would have got if no one had contested anything to begin with. So there you go. All right. So in the process, like I said, I'm struggling just to try to stay in the house that I was renting, and just trying to make the bills and still go to work, still raise the kids, still pay all the bills, et cetera, et cetera. So it was a lot of changes. Once the finances got, done, then it was a lot better, but it did take a while. I mean, once the life insurance finally paid out, that was when we were able to build our house and, pay off a bunch of the debts and things like that. So, anyway, so the situation now is that, I was still working. It's not like I was able to quit my job or anything. I was still working, and, my children got some Social Security money until they're 18. So Dallas is not quite 18. So she still gets a little bit. I still get a little bit of money on her behalf to help take care of her through Social Security. She also gets a little bit from the VA, because after all was said and done, this has been like in the last year or so, I've been continuing to contest Dewey's death, the cause of his death. And the military finally accepted that his death was service related within the last year, which means that Dallas will get a little bit of money, or I will get some money on her behalf to help take care of her due to his service-related death. So not a lot, but every little bit helps, right? So that's the situation that we're in now. Once she turns 18, no more benefits for me. I may be I may be able to get, sorry about that. I may be able to get some Social Security benefits. I'm not sure, to be honest, because I haven't really checked it out. But I think I can get a small part of his Social Security because he was on disability, not old people Social Security. So I think that once Dallas gets grown, when she turns 18, I think I will be eligible for like a few $100s. I'm not exactly sure. So I know I'll get something, but I don't know exactly how much. And to be honest, since I'm remarried, I might not qualify for any of it. So I really don't know. We'll have to see. That's something that I have to do a little research on and find out. And I've got about 3 years to figure it out. Right. And so there we are. That was a long story, but just to show you that, my finances have changed a lot. I'm no longer working. And so I'm having to figure out how to help pay the bills around here. Like I said, we took out a second mortgage on our home. And so we now have mortgage. We have all kinds of bills. I mean, you know how it is, just bills. And I still have a child to raise. She's 14. She's expensive. She's got braces. I have to pay for private school for her. I don't have to, I choose to pay for private school for her. She's about to be driving. And so she's going to need a car in a year or so, all those expenses. So, it's not easy. And I am very blessed that I am remarried and my husband is gainfully employed and I do have money coming in, and it's still tough. I still struggle. And so, and now we're about to do our taxes tomorrow. I'm about to find out if we have to pay any any tax, income tax, or if we can take enough deductions off to where we don't have to pay a whole lot compared to what we've already paid in so far. So that just goes to show you how how so much has changed and how things can change and things inevitably do change when you become widowed. And a lot of things you don't know about. And so the one lesson I want you to take from this whole thing is that if you are widowed, go find out what your rights are. Go find out what you are entitled to. Go find out what your benefits can be in the different places. And everybody's different. The only thing that I can tell you is that most of the things that I know about in general are for the United States. If you're in a different country, I have no clue about how finances work in a different country, so I'm not sure. But whatever those might be, go find out what they are, or get a financial professional to help you with those as well. Whatever state you're in, find out what those things are. But at the very least, depending on how old you are, go to Social Security and find out if you have any benefits available to you as far as money, as far as health insurance, depending on your age. Go to your husband's or your wife's job and find out if there's any pension, retirement, any kind of benefits available to you that will pay out through their job if they had a traditional type job, where they were being paid by a company or something like that. So go find out if, you have any benefits available to you, widow's benefits, survivor's benefits for you on their job. Also, if your spouse was in the military, contact the VA and find out what you can apply for as far as benefits for VA benefits. And believe it or not, there could be a lot more things out there available to you that you are not aware of, that you didn't know until you started doing some digging around. All right. And don't hesitate to get somebody to help you with that, whether it be an attorney to represent you on a claim, or a finance, like Money Pickle or some other finance person that can say, here are some things to check out. And then see if, go through all the paperwork that you can think of and just, rack your brain to see did your husband or wife have a life insurance policy? Sometimes there are life insurance payouts available attached to mortgages. Like when you take out a mortgage and you pay and you go sign 1,000 pages of paperwork and you go in there when you get your mortgage and stuff. Sometimes there are things that are built in to those mortgages to cover the bank. Like sometimes there are life insurance riders or attachments, there that basically say if one of you or both of you dies or whatever, that you have some kind of an insurance that will at least pay off the mortgage, so the bank doesn't lose out if one or both of you pass away. And so some banks require those types of things. So I'm just saying that there are options out there for you to explore and do all the deep diving and digging and rack your brain to try to find out, is there any money out there? Are there any finances out there? Are there any benefits to you, even if it's just health benefits or burial benefits or um, any kind of benefits that you can take advantage of, that you have the right to, that you may not know about, because nobody's going to come knocking on your door and saying, hello, ma'am, here's your benefits check. Like, you have to go out and advocate for yourself. You have to go out and fill out the paperwork. You have to go do the applications. You have to go start your files, open cases, or whatever they are. Sometimes you can't cash out or have things changed over into your name from the estate until you go through probate. And so that's a whole nother thing. Like, that's a real confusing thing. You might need an attorney for that to go. If you had investment property, if you had real estate, if you had business holdings, if you had stocks, or, I don't know a whole lot about that stuff, but if you or your spouse or both of you had any kind of investments out there, find out if how to get them in your name, find out how to cash them out if you need to, find out how to convert them into other whatever. Like, I don't know even what all the options are, but I'm just saying, go out and find out what is there and how you can get access to it, or how you can benefit from it, or how you can get it put over into your name, because knowledge is power. When my current husband's wife passed away, he had a house that was in both his and his wife's name, even though his wife never really worked, but he wanted her to feel like it was her house as much as it was his. So when they built the house and got the mortgage, it was in both of their names. So when she died, he had to go get the house put into his name only. And it was a legal process that he had to go through, some paperwork, and he had to fill out some documents, and they had to do some kind of search, and they had to, then he found out he had a lien on his house. Like, all this stuff was uncovered that he didn't know about. So that when he tried to sell his house, he thought he had $80,000 in equity, and he ended up being $80,000 in the hole. Like, he was going to have to pay to get out of his mortgage because of some old lien that he didn't even know about until he was trying to get all the paperwork done and filled out. So then he had to go get himself a lawyer and, go through arbitration and figure out all this stuff. So, it ended up being okay, but he ended up selling his house and walking away with nothing because of some old lien on a vehicle from years ago that he just didn't know about. And so, and if he had not known about it, like if he hadn't tried to do all that paperwork, he never would have known about it. And he would have left his house to his kids thinking he was leaving them with some legacy, and he would have just left them with a big giant bill. So those are things he did not like, that were uncovered because of the probate process and the legal process of putting things in different people's names, et cetera. So, and this is weird to say, but like, I had a small life insurance policy out on Dewey through my job when I was teaching, that when I was just filling out paperwork through HR, I just checked a couple blocks, and it's like, do you want this free, blah, 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 blah. The max you can get is 20,000 or 30,000 or whatever with no medical thing. It's an automatic up to that amount if you check this box, and it's an extra like $2 a month. I was like, okay, I checked the block, never even thought about it after that point. And I didn't even remember about that little policy until after his funeral. And I'm sitting there talking to my mom, and I was like, wait a minute, hold on a second. I was like, I think I have a small insurance policy out on Dewey through my job. And I hadn't thought about it the whole time he was sick, the whole time right after he died. Never did I even think about it. Like, it never dawned on me. And so I went through my paperwork real quick, and I found out that, I did have that small policy on him. Thank God, because that's what saved us from being, evicted from our house. Like, that little bit of money was what helped me pay the bills for those few months until the regular life insurance paid. And that one was non-contested. Nobody even knew about it except me. And so I just made a call, sent off the death certificate, and like in 10 days or something like that, I had a check. And so that was something that if I hadn't remembered it, I never would have filed for it, and it still probably would be sitting there right now. I don't know if there's a statute of limitations on that kind of stuff, but like nobody's going to come to your house and your door and say, but here's that money that we owe you. And so, like I said, go out, gather all the paperwork that you think you can find a lawyer if you need to, and find out what benefits that you may have. In America, there's lots of different places that benefits hide that a lot of times we don't know about, and unfortunately we have to find out about when we become widowed. Let's see. Let me go back on the chat. Gigi, oh, they're talking about my hair. Gigi said, let it grow. You won't know unless you do. I did after retirement and then decided definitely not and cut it. Okay, Gigi, thank you. That's what I'm thinking too. I'm thinking I'm going to cut it, but I don't want to make the decision like too early. And so I want to at least get it to where I can put it in a ponytail. Amberlynn says, I'm really fast at pinning my hair up, but your hair is so stylish and cute. Short. I hate when my hair is in between stage, but hang in there if you want to try it long once more. Yeah. One of the reasons why I cut it years ago was because I was putting it in a ponytail all the time. And I started to get a little bald spot up here because it was just pulling out all the time. And I have thyroid issues. And so my hair just was falling out. My hair is really thin also. So when it gets long, it doesn't always look great. Amberlynn also says, finances are a major reason I'm scared of getting remarried. My husband was frugal and money savvy. I'm scared of losing my security because I have a tendency to want to please people. So Amberlynn, I have something to say about that in just a minute, and I'll tell you. She also says, my husband was on Social Security disability due to heart failure, not age. I lost his check when he did. We lost our son's check from the husband's disability the month before he graduated and the year before my husband died. So I'm wondering why you lost the check when he died. You should have gotten survivor's benefits after, unless you didn't get any because you were too young and your kids were too old. Was that what it was from? So maybe you have to wait until you're a certain age. How old is it? 57? I don't know the year. You'll have to find out. You probably know more than I do because I'm not really in that situation because I still have a child under 18. But Amberlynn was talking about how she was scared to get remarried because of finances and things. And so that I will add that to my story. When I was trying to get Dewey's death to be service related so that I could get widow's benefits. It's called DIC, Dependency Indemnity Compensation or something like that. But basically widows. It's not a widow's pension. It's survivor's benefits from service-connected death. It's two different things, which was one of the reasons why that was all messed up because the application is the same page. There's a box to check for widows for pension, and there's a box to check for DIC. I checked DIC, but whoever got the paperwork filed it as a pension, and it got declined. Then it was all mixed up from then because you can't do another claim. You have to do what do they call it? You have to do an appeal to the original. So they kept going back saying, well, the original you were declined because of widow's pension pension. I'm like, it wasn't a pension. It was not ever a pension. I know I don't qualify for pension. I'm DIC, and it was so confusing. So I had to appeal like 3 or 4 times. And finally I got denied all the times. And so I was like, you know what? Forget it. I even had, I was talking to lawyers and doctors. So I talked to the lawyers to try to get somebody to take my case for the service connection. And the lawyer would say, you know what? We'll be happy to take you on as a client as soon as you can get a doctor. We need a doctor to make a statement that says it was just as likely as not that the cancer was from the toxins or whatever. And so I was like, okay. So I started talking to doctors. So the doctors would say, you know what? We will be happy to review your husband's medical documentation as soon as you get a lawyer and have a lawyer send us a letter about exactly what we need. So the doctor says they would take me as soon as I got a lawyer, and the lawyer said they would take me on as soon as I got a doctor. I couldn't get either one because I couldn't get the other. I was between a rock and a hard place, and I could not get anyone to help me. I had one doctor that said, okay, I will review all of your husband's files and I will write you a letter with my findings. He said, but number one, I'm not promising you that I'm going to say that it was or not because I don't know until I see the files. Totally understandable. He's not going to promise to say something medically if he doesn't know what he's going to say. That's the whole purpose of reviewing the files. But he was like, so you won't know until after I review the files what my letter is going to say. So I'm not promising you that I'm going to say what you need me to say. It depends on what his file looks like. He said, and I need you to pay me $6,000 up front just to look at his files. So I was like, I don't have $6,000. He's like, okay, well, have a nice day. So I could have paid $6,000 to have the doctor look over my case. And if he said yes, then I could have got a lawyer and gone through the whole process. But what if I paid $6,000 and he said, nah, I don't see a connection. I can't really say one for sure that your husband's death was service connected. So what if he said no? And then I'll be out $6,000. So I said, okay, never mind. So the whole point of this was that I was trying to get this check from, I was trying to get approved for DIC from the VA and survivor's benefits. And based on his service-connected death. And if you watch the story that I talked about, the 2-part story about his cancer journey and all that stuff, we had talked about that. But if he had lived 53 more days, I would have automatically gotten that money because of the time frame between the time he got sick and the time that he died, or the time that he got approved for disability and the time that he died. If it had been 5 years and it was 4 years and blah, blah, blah days, it was 53 days short of the 5 years. So it wasn't automatic. And so I had to apply and I got denied. And so I kept thinking, well, I'm not going to get remarried because even if I wanted to, if I get these benefits, I lose those benefits if I get remarried. So I was like, even if I found somebody later on down the road, I wouldn't marry them. I would just live with them. And so then I met JP and I told him those things and he was like, yeah, I don't want to live together. That's against, I'm Christian. Like, I don't want to just shack up or whatever. And in my mind, I was like, well, I've been denied for these benefits all this time anyway. So it's like, there's no financial benefit for me to not get married. And so we went ahead and got married. And then, 5 years later, I get the PACT Act comes out and I fill out this application and turns out they approved his service connection, because of the PACT Act, because it was one of those cancers that was under those presumptive clauses. It basically says if you were in this area during this time and you had these cancers, it's automatically connected to the death of the spouse. And so I would have qualified for the benefits. So if I had not remarried, I would have qualified for those benefits and been able to get those forever. But since I did remarry, even though I did get the service connection, I get the money for Dallas, which is a little bit, but I don't get the money for myself. And so, Amberlynn, that fear that you had is valid. I'm not saying that I'm not saying I want to get divorced. I'm not saying that I made a mistake. I'm not saying I regret what I did, but I am saying that it did make a difference financially for me to decide to go ahead and get married. I did not think that I was going to get service connected approval later on, but I did it for the kids. And so there you go. So it did affect me. And so I wouldn't change anything, but if I had been able to see the future, I might not have gotten remarried. I still would have wanted to be with JP, but I don't know that I would have legally got married, and he might not have wanted to shack up, if you want to call it. So I don't know. I don't know how it would have changed if I had known ahead of time, but it did affect me for sure. Amberlynn said, yes, I was 41 when he died. Our son was 19 when he died. Oh, your husband was not in the military. Okay. I gotcha. I guess I just thought that survivor's benefits for Social Security was for everybody, but I guess it's just for the kids. And then the wife doesn't get to get it until after a certain age. So I guess that's what it is. See, I don't even really know because the rules change all the time. It's so convoluted with all the different qualifications and stuff. You really need to go. Everyone needs to go to the Social Security office and find out. Even if you don't qualify for anything right now, at least they will be able to tell you, okay, this is what you need to do when you are 57, when you are 60, when you're 60 and a half or whatever. They'll tell you 3 months before your so-and-so birthday, come in and apply for blah, blah, blah. They'll be able to tell you what you can qualify for at what age and what time. And at least you'll know that that's what you'll be getting at that point, barring any changes in the government. And so even if you don't think you qualify for anything right now, still go to the Social Security office and ask, well, what will I be able to get at what age? Because a lot of times you get to choose between your husband's benefits or your own at a certain time, and whoever's is the highest or lowest. Like, I don't know all the rules, but I just know that there's some choices that you have to make. And there's a certain point that you might be able to get things earlier based on your husband's base or your wife's different from yours. I don't know all the rules, but go make an appointment and talk to somebody at the Social Security office in your area, and they will be able to, they know all those rules because that's what they do all day. And so they'll be able to help you kind of, lay out a plan at least and know, okay, well, I don't get anything now, but when I turn 59 or when I turn 57 or when I turn 60 or whatever the age is that they tell you, you'll be looking at this is what you can do. And even after that, there's some rules that apply. I don't know what they all are about how much you can make when you work and how much you can make. And, they take off certain amounts if you work over certain amounts. I don't know all the rules. It's very confusing, but there are rules and you need to know what they are for yourself. So go and talk to somebody. I implore you to do that because you may have find out that you have access to benefits that you didn't even know about. So LaDonna says not until you're 60. Okay, I gotcha. And also there's another like there's a bill right now that is, sitting trying to get passed. It's been there for a couple years. It's called the Love Lives On Act. And if that passes, then they will allow benefits to surviving spouses of people, women in the military, men in the military, even if they get remarried. And so if the Love Lives On Act passes, then I will be able to then get benefits from his service related death that I don't get now and that I could have gotten if I hadn't got remarried. So that whole remarriage thing might be okay if the Love Lives On Act passes. I don't know how long it's going to take before it does or get struck down. It's been kind of stuck in the Senate or the House or somewhere. I kind of follow it every few months. It's not really gone anywhere in like 2 years. Maybe something will happen now that we have a new president. I don't know. But we'll see. Maybe I need to write to my congressman and ask him what the heck's going on. You need to put a, um, let's get going on this on delay, right? um, so I'm going over my notes to see if there's anything else that I missed because I kind of just went on a tangent. But I talked about all the things that you need to do now, and then the rest of it is just basically long-term stuff, tax stuff. Oh, I wanted to say something about taxes. Just know that, especially for new widows, just know, and I'm not going to tell you how to file your taxes. I just want you to know that there are different options, filing options available to you, and they change all the time. So they might have been different than when I filed. But when Dewey first died, I filed a certain way, and then I filed a different way. So like make sure that you talk to an accountant if your spouse died in 2024, because you need to know how you need to file your taxes for 2024 when you file them now, between now and April 15th, right? Because I can't remember if it's like based on the date of the death or if it's just as long as they were alive one day in the year, then you can count yourself married. I don't know. So, and I'm not trying to tell you, but there's some kind of something they will tell you that how you need to file, even if your spouse died in 2024. I want to say for me that I was able to file married for the year that Dewey died because he was alive even one day. So I might be remembering that wrong, but I feel like I went ahead and filed married for 2017 because I was married to him at some point. I think that's how it went. But again, it might be different for you and it might be different now than it was back then. And then there's another way that I filed for 2 years, I think. Like there's a special designation that you could take, or there was, in the first year or two after they die. And then after that, you have to switch over to single or head of household or things like that. So there's like a transitional filing status that is available to some people right after, within a year or two after their spouses have died. And so again, things change from year to year, but the way that I did it for that year or two after he died, I think it was just that I filed widowed. I think it was something like that. And whatever it was basically the same status as filing married for that year or two. So it was kind of like a transitional filing. Then after that, I actually filed married because in 2019, I got married. And so I don't know that I actually ever filed single or head of household. Um, anyway, it's called qualifying widow or widower, but you might have to have a dependent child to do that. So also, again, don't do what I'm telling you. I'm just saying there are options, filing options and changes that you will need to make the way you file. The year that you're filing, if it was the year they died, the year after that, and maybe the year after that. So just make sure that you know what your options are for filing and what the qualifications are for you to be able to file those different ways. Because filing a single it's a good way to pay higher taxes, right? So if you're going to get a tax benefit, even for a year or two, you want to go ahead and take it if you are qualified to do that. So also know that you might have different tax breaks as a widow. Your standard deductions are going to change, obviously, because you are on one income instead of two. Also, if you make some financial changes, if you change jobs, if you sell a house, if you cash in retirement, like all of those things are going to affect your taxes. I don't know how they will affect your taxes, but they will. And so anything that you do that's big like that, you need to make sure that you have documentation of so that your accountant knows. Like, I wondered, like I got this huge, check for life insurance. Do I have to pay taxes on that? Turns out I did not have to pay taxes on that, but I wasn't sure. I didn't know if I had to pay taxes on my Social Security benefits. Turns out I don't. But those are questions that you need to make sure that you ask, because you don't want to end up paying taxes on money that you didn't have to pay. The first year after he died, I did pay taxes on all of my Social Security benefits, and I did not need to, but I filed my own taxes and I made a mistake and I put that in his income and ended up paying taxes on it. And I should not have had to do that. I should not have even had to claim them at all. But since I did, I ended up paying taxes on them, and I could have gone back and done a change or whatever, but no. Whatever's done is in the past. I have enough paperwork to deal with on the things I have to do now. Right. So also, like I said, when kids come along, if you have children that are under 18, your children may have benefits that you would not normally have. And so since they're under 18, you would be the guardian of them. And so you would be the person who gets the money on behalf of your child. So if you have any children that are either disabled, still living at home and receiving all of your money, which a lot of them do until they're who knows how old, or if they're under 18 and still in high school. So there's different qualifications as far as carrying them on your health insurance, as far as counting them as dependents, as far as getting benefits for them from Social Security, things like that. So your kids may actually qualify you for receiving some money on their behalf to help take care of them that you might not know about, again, from Social Security, from pensions, from military, if your spouse was in the military, things like that. Also know that if you decide to do something drastic like cash out a retirement fund or something, there may be tax penalties, or there may be penalties, or there may be charges or interest. Like, I don't know anything about that stuff, but just know you need to ask all those questions before you make big money decisions, because you might be doing something that would not benefit you in the long run, even though you think that it's doing something for you in the now. And so you might have to make choices like, okay, well, I have to do what's best for me right now, or I have to do what's best for me in the long run, and I have to decide which one is more important. And so just know what those options are, because I don't know what they are, even for me. Like, I need somebody to tell me what they are, depending on the state that I live in and, the country you live in, et cetera. And so, and also there may be estate stuff like I'll say this: do not pay any of your spouse's bills until you know for sure that you actually owe them. Okay. Because depending on the state, you may or may not be financially responsible for your spouse's debts. Like if there was a credit card, like I live in Georgia, Dewey had several credit cards in his name only that did not have my name on it. When he died, I did not owe the money for those credit cards. They were not my debt. I did not inherit that debt. I did not have to pay the credit cards for those. However, those credit card companies still called me and asked me and basically said, yes, you need to pay these, you need to pay these, you need to pay these. They want their money. They don't know what my rights are. I knew that what my rights were, and that I did not have to pay. I was not obligated to pay them, but they're not going to tell me that. If I had listened to them, I would have tried to pay all those credit cards off when I did not have to. I did not have to pay his medical bills because they were in his name. They were his medical debt. They were not mine. But I live in a state where that's what the rules were at that time. So if you live in a different state or you live in the same state and it's a different time, like I said, those types of things change. But just before you pay any debt on your spouse's behalf, any kind of money, if their name was on it, don't pay any of their debt until you know whether you're financially responsible for them. You might be. And if you are, then you got to figure out how to deal with that. But don't just pay it because somebody calls you and says, hey, your husband had this bill and you need to pay it because you're his wife and you're responsible. Okay. And then you pay it. And then you realize later, oh, I didn't have to pay that. Because guess what? After you pay it, how easy do you think it's going to be to get that money back? Probably zero chance. Like you might be able to sue them to get the money back. I don't know. But, so just, I'm not saying don't pay it. I'm saying don't pay it until you know for sure whether you have to, because a lot of people will pay bills that they're not responsible for because they thought they were supposed to, because the bill collector called and told them to, and they just did. Also things that, like if you sell a home or just, like I said, if you make any big, large financial decisions, just know what the repercussions of those are. And if you don't know what they are, go talk to somebody to find out what they are. You might have to go through some legal proceedings, as far as estate management and probating estates and things like that, wills, all that kind of stuff. It's very convoluted, but you gotta go through a lot of that, especially in the beginning. Let's see. Also, just know that you're a target for scams. Widows are targets for scams a lot. And scams are always about money. I mean, because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get money out of you. And so I feel like I'm pretty technically savvy. And even this past year, I got scammed out of $500 on Facebook. I don't even want to talk about how it was. It was just some dumb thing that I thought it was a friend. And I was like, oh, it's my second cousin. She wouldn't be selling her neighbor's car if, like I know her. She's family. So if she says she's selling her friend's car and she needs me to send her money, for a deposit to hold the car until we get a chance to look at it, I'll send it to her. PayPal, it wasn't her. She had cloned my second cousin's Facebook page, or they or he or somebody. And then when they gave me the PayPal address and I paid it, and I was like, hey, this says it's not a valid email address. And they're like, oh, sorry, try this one. And they gave me another one. And if I had paid that other one, I would have given them another $500. So anyway, and I went through PayPal. I tried to get it back. I did not get it back. I lost that money. And it was my fault. I got scammed. And I'm the one that's like, don't ever click this and don't ever believe people. And it happened to me too. So, it happens. Also, okay. So we talked about short term, we talked about long term. So we need to think about long term as far as like, you need to make sure that all your stuff is updated. And so, when you're married, you have beneficiaries and you have people that are lined up to get whatever it is that you're supposed to get when you die. A lot of times your spouse is the person who's supposed to get a certain amount, and then kids, and then other people or whatever. So make sure that your finances are lined up for your survivors and your children and the people that you want to get your things. Because if your spouse was supposed to get 50% or 100% of your life insurance policy or something like that, well, if your spouse is no longer here, then you need to figure out, how do you want to reallocate those percentages to your children or your family or your friends or organizations or charities or whatever, your church, however you want that to go. You need to make a decision, because if not, then the backup beneficiaries are going to kick in, and you might not have set that up thinking that was really going to happen. That might not be how you want things to go now. So someone else is going to make those decisions for you if you don't make those decisions yourself. And so, set up a time to make sure that your life insurance, first of all, get life insurance if you can afford it. And then second, hold on. My husband is texting me, telling me hold on. Okay. I just want to make sure I wasn't missing any important, because like my texts are going crazy. I told him I was going to be live. So if he's texting me, I'm thinking it must be an emergency. It's not. Anyway, If you can afford life insurance, especially if you have younger children, get it. And make sure if you already have life insurance or when you get life insurance, make sure your beneficiaries are set up the way that you want them to be. If you have beneficiaries on something through your job, any kind of benefits through your job, make sure that you redo those beneficiaries that and set them up the way that you want them to be set up, because you've probably already seen how death can bring out the worst in people. Like my husband was dying in hospice, and I would go in and talk to him and close the door, and people would walk outside the door and try to listen in. And even his best friend said, it looks kind of suspect that you keep going in there and talking to him. And we know you're talking about finances, and it seems pretty suspect that you're, in there talking finances with him with the door closed and you won't let anybody come in. And I'm like, hold on a minute. I'm talking to my husband of 17 years. We have 4 children that we are raising together. And you, his friend, need to be in the room to make sure that I'm not going to talk about something suspect. Like, what the hell? And he said that to me, and I was so desperate at that time to prove to everybody that I was not this greedy, soon to be widow trying to take everything. And now that I look back, I'm like, hold on. Even if I was trying to take everything, that's okay, because I'm the wife and I'm about to be raising these kids by myself. And like, I deserve to get everything that I'm supposed to get. Like, it's okay if the wife gets everything and the best friend doesn't get anything. Like, that's okay. Like, what do you owe the best friend? What do you owe the mother? Like, if you want to be nice, that's fine. But like, so anyway, can you tell I'm salty about that? All I'm trying to say is, just make sure, and JP and I have had to make some changes that now that we have blended family, because the house that we're living in is bought because of the house that I bought before. And I bought that house before with the life insurance money that I got from Dewey. So that is something that my children, Dewey's children, should have come to them, right? Like, I don't want this house split up amongst 7 children, 3 of which are my stepchildren who had nothing to do with me getting that house to begin with. Do you understand? So, like, we have to think about what is due to, JP's side of the family, what is due to my side of the family. Just because we're blended now doesn't mean that the assets should be blended after the fact. Like, we still need to have them split up in a way that we think is fair. And so we had to make sure that what we wanted done was done, and in writing and legally documented before they start fighting about it. So if something happens to me or him or both of us, by golly, our kids will not be fighting over how things are going to be split up, because it is very, very explicitly spelled out who's going to get what and how much everybody's going to get, so that no one will be able to. They can contest, but it would be stupid for them to do so, because they won't get anything. And neither will anybody else until it all gets straightened out, right? So anyway, we have it all set up to make sure that it goes the way that we want it to. And so nobody has to fight over things and wonder what we wanted to happen, because we have it set up the way that we want. You might have to move. You might have to get a new job. You might have to, your finances might change on a day-to-day basis or a month-to-month basis. You might have been a stay-at-home mom, and now you might have to go back to work and to make ends meet. Like, a lot of things change financially for people when one of the incomes goes away. And so there's a lot of things that might have to change because of that. I think that's about it. Like I said, on the one hand, don't feel pressured to make decisions right away. But on the other hand, just remember that a lot of times time is of the essence. And so you can't just wait around forever. Like, don't let anybody pressure you to make a decision you're not ready to make. But at the same time, just make it a priority to give it the time and the attention that it needs, even though I know that's the hardest thing you want to do. Like, you do not want to be talking about money and finances and figuring out what the heck you're going to do with all, how you're going to pay your bills and stuff when your husband just died. I totally get that. But unfortunately, sometimes we got to put our grief over in the passenger seat, and we have to flip over to legal stuff, and unfortunately, when we're talking about money stuff, we have to be careful about who we ask to help us, because if you ask a friend or you ask a family member, they might not have your best interest in mind. They might have their own best interest in mind. And I hate that, but that is sometimes true. And they might not always know what's going on. So that's another reason why to think about hiring a professional, because they're going to be on your side, nobody else's. They're not going to have anybody's best interest in mind except yours, because you went there for, you're hiring them to represent you and your interests. So they're not going to let somebody else come in and take something that should have been yours or benefit in some way that where you should have benefited or anything like that. They're going to be, a neutral party, instead of asking your grown child what you should do about your beneficiaries on your life insurance. I mean, that's a little bit of a conflict of interest unless they're an only child. And so, you just have a lot of decisions to make. And I know it's tough. And I know that it's not what we want to do. And unfortunately, it's something we have to do. The reason why I'm thinking about that, like I said, is because it's tax season. And so you might not realize that your taxes are going to be different when you file them now for last year if you just lost your spouse. And if it happened even before that, your taxes might even be different because of that qualifying widowed status. Like, those are just questions that you need to ask. So just make sure that you ask questions and don't make any assumptions. And if anybody gives you advice, think about the position that they're in and think about like where they're coming from and why they might be giving you the advice that they're giving you. What would they stand to gain? What would they stand to lose? I mean, I hate that you have to assume the worst in people, but sometimes you do, even if it's your grown kids and they're telling you, hey, mom, you need to do such and such. Start thinking about, well, why are they telling me that? Or if your neighbor comes by, or if you're the single guy that lives across the street is telling you, is like asking you questions about finances. Like, just think about I hate this, but I wish I had thought about this a little bit more. But, like I should have thought about, why am I having this conversation with his best friend? We're talking about money. Like, why am I discussing this with him? I should have just been like, you know what? This is really not any of your business. And so I'll talk about this with you when the time is right. And the time is not right now. And so, but I didn't, because I'm a people pleaser. And even when my husband was dying, I felt bad about seeming like a bitch. And so I probably put my own finances in jeopardy because I didn't want people to think that I was greedy. And like, I should have just said, everybody out. I'm not talking about this with anybody except my husband. And so y'all come back in an hour. But, hindsight's 2020. And so there you go. I'm going to go check the chat and then I'm going to probably wrap it up. Mommy Mall from San Diego says, my 3 kids and I received survivor's benefits for many years. After the youngest turned 18, they stopped. I was able to receive his Social Security after I turned 60. I never remarried. Okay, gotcha. So again, there's benefits that you can get on behalf of your children, and then there's benefits that you can get for yourself. But there could be a gap between however old you are when your child turns 18 versus when you are old enough to receive benefits on your own behalf. So just make sure you know what the rules are and what benefits you qualify for. And just because somebody else qualifies for something at a certain time doesn't mean you will or won't, because every situation is different. So I can tell you what happened to me, and the people in the chat can tell you what happened to them and what they qualified for at what time, but don't make any assumptions for yourself. Go to the Social Security, make an appointment and go talk to somebody and say, look, I don't know what I qualify for. Can you please tell me? And basically you show them your Social Security card, you give them the Social Security number of your spouse, and you show them the death certificate, and they will tell you everything. They'll look it up in the computer and they'll tell you everything that you need to know. And they'll be able to tell you how much you qualify for, when you're going to get it, how much, how often, all that stuff. Okay. Let's see. Amberlynn says, my husband just made sure I'd financially stable and be able to get our son up and grown without concern. Fear of screwing up what we worked over 20 years for is real. Yeah, I totally get that. I totally get that. Like, it's a big decision to make, especially when you have children you're still taking care of, and it's really sad that sometimes we have to make a decision between remarrying and doing something for ourselves in our heart and financially possibly screwing up something for ourselves at the same time. Like, it's really sad that we have to decide between money and remarriage. Like, isn't that Just it's terrible, right? Like we should just if we want to move on and be remarried, we should be able to do that without being financially penalized from and I guess they feel like, well, your husband is taking care of you from beyond the grave, but if you remarry, then your new husband can take care of you and your dead husband shouldn't have to anymore. Like I kind of see that, but at the same time, I'm like, come on, man. You're really messing with widows. Like you're really messing with our decision process because it's making us feel, how guilty we already feel. Now we're feeling really guilty, like, well, I really like this guy, but I don't really want to get involved with him because what if we get serious and he wants to get married and I don't want to get married because it'll cost me too much money, and then I feel like I care about money more than I care about a person or my own happiness. Like having to make those kinds of decisions, that'll mess with your brain for sure. Like it will totally mess with you. So, you know, like I said, but unfortunately, that is the world that we live in or the country that we live in. I don't know about other countries, but with here, you have to make a decision between remarriage or financial benefits a lot of the times. So that sucks, but it is. All right, guys. Well, by the time I come back next time, I'll be able to let you know whether I'm paying any taxes. I'm sure I won't get a refund, but I feel like the best we can hope for is zero to very little taxes that we have to pay. I'm hoping if we can pay less than $2,000 in taxes, in income taxes, like that'll be great. But that's just my little in my mind. I have no idea. We're letting the accountant figure all that stuff out. I did have two W-2 jobs earlier this year. So I did pay a little bit in taxes and I did, I did have like a real salary. I have made a little bit of money on my business, but I haven't paid any taxes in for that because it's new and I don't make enough to do quarterly. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. So, all right. I'm going to wrap it up. I think my husband is coming in with some lunch. And so I'm about to have some late lunch and go see Money Pickle if you want to. The link is down below in the description and we'll see you next time. Thanks for checking in. See ya. Bye.